Destination Freedom. Destination Freedom, dramatizations of the great democratic traditions of the Negro people, is brought to you by station WMAQ as a part of the pageant of history and of America's own Destination Freedom. The Indians used to say with great simplicity that the first white settler in Chicago was a Negro. His name was Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable, the Daniel Boone of Illinois. At the close of the 18th century, he had hacked out of the wild, windy plains at the foot of Lake Michigan a fabulous trading post and a settlement that stood on the sites now studded with skyscrapers and crossed by boulevards. For an account of this mysterious frontiersman, Destination Freedom brings you its chapter entitled The Man Who Owned Chicago.
200 years is a long time to look ahead. It is a longer time to look back. My name, now an unnoticeable one among the giants that have grown up in your city, my name is up. But for 2 decades of those 200 years, mine was the only name known in Chicago. I plowed on ground where the merchandise mart now stands. My stable stood where they built Tribune Tower. I had a cornfield cleared where they put the city hall. They called me the man who owned Chicago. They wonder if my spirit haunts the streets where I once traded furs. They wonder what would happen if I could come back to restate my claims to the city. And sometimes I wonder, toy with the idea of stepping from behind my 200 years and down the bridges they have built, spanning my lots.
Hey, commit suicide in the lake. Don't do it in front of my car. Get out of the street. Ain't you got no brain, buddy? You're in the middle of the street.
All right now. What's holding up traffic? Pull out. Come on, you. Get over to the sidewalk.
I suppose I walked over to the sidewalk and stood over the spot where I had put up the first Chicago mill 200 years before. Suppose I stood the stare of the policeman.
Now, who in the devil you advertising for? Old settlers or something?
Officer, I happen to be the first settler in Chicago. At least, I am his spirit.
Drunk on top of it, eh?
If you'll be so kind as to show me to the city hall, I can get my deed settled and get these people evicted who camped here without my consent.
Oh, you don't intend to evict them all, do you now? It's a pity. Since you left the place, the housing shortage has become just terrible. But just come this way, I'll show you to the city hall. It's just this way.
And suppose I followed the puzzled officer who had another destination in mind, but who dropped me by the recorder of deeds office at the city hall, just to make certain of my insanity.
Yes, officer, can I help you?
Yes, I wonder if you'll do me the favor of entertaining this gentleman's illusion while I call to the squad.
What does he claim he holds title to?
Central Chicago, sir.
You mean...
Humor him, will you, while I get the squad? The recorder will check into the claim. Just be seated here.
I don't quite understand. What is your name, sir?
I am Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable. Some time ago, nearly 200 years, in fact, I decided to leave Chicago, and I leased all of my property to a French trader, Joseph Lemay. I died soon after that.
You did? And after you died, then what, Mr. DuSable?
I guess my spirit was no better than most spirits. I got restless and revengeful, wandering around without a home to call its own, you know.
Oh, yes, we know. We know just how that makes a poor spirit feel.
Naturally, since my spirit was so restless, I had to come back and claim my home.
Chicago?
All of it.
Well, you know, it's customary in these matters, Mr. DuSable. Not that I doubt your claim in the slightest degree, but, well, Chicago, it's mighty big.
Oh, I do not want it all. If I can find a small point near the lake where I can rest in peace and paint, I might be entirely satisfied.
Mr. DuSable, Could you explain why you let such a valuable piece of property as Chicago slip through your hands, and why you're willing to settle for such a small point?
I guess it is because of Nancy, monsieur.
Yes. Yes, go on.
And suppose, as the recorder questioned me, I recalled the story of the last night I spent in Chicago in October 1796. All the wind had been whipping the waves over the lake. A real winter storm was coming. My house stood just at the mouth of the river, and as soon as I'd heard the wind rising, I had thrown open my door to look across the lake. My pal dug his claws into my shoulders. He was excited, too. Waco Patoma, an Indian companion who knew what I dreamed about, squinted his eyes at the clouds.
Yes, the kind of storm you've been waiting for. It will be full by morning.
Be still, be still. Yes, it's coming all right. Get my paint and easel ready. We'll let it grow for a while. In the morning, I'll be ready for it.
In the morning, Sable, you ought to be many, many miles from here.
And leave the richest and fastest growing trading post in the north.
You don't care anything about the richest post.
You know why I stay.
And I know you are sick. You can't bring her back by painting the lake.
Waco!
Well?
I've said before, if you want to leave, go on. I'm staying until I see a storm like the one I remember. If you want to leave, leave.
I'll help you get ready for tomorrow morning.
Waco helped me with the house, helped me with the trading post, helped me handle the settlers that made Point Chicago their home, helped me with my hobby, painting the pictures of the lake and the wildlife around me. But he never helped me when the French trader LeMay came in, as he did this night.
Ah, well, Baptiste Sab.
He is very busy tonight, LeMay. I don't think he wants to be...
See me, won't you do so? Now, here's a better proposition than I had last week. You are getting to be an old man, you know, and you ought to sell this place.
Nonsense.
I talk good sense. Now, look here. I have drawn a contract that will give you 6,000 louvres a year for life. You can rest and paint all the pictures you want to. I've even got a lake on my place in Missouri. Or not as big as the one outside, but enough lake to paint in a picture. Now, face facts to solve. You have not been pushing your trade as you want.
Every night for weeks, LeMay had brought in his contract, begging me to sell or take him into partnership. And each night I had filled his glass with friendly wine and said to him,
No, for the last time, no.
No? Good wine. I can't say I blame you holding on here. Point Chicago might draw settlers someday. Even if you're not really interested in fur trading anymore.
LeMay.
Don't rush me out into the storm. I am going. But when you get the lake out of your eyes, I will be back. Send for me.
I opened the door for LeMay, but stood a while and looked across the lake at the coming storm. It made me remember how long I'd lived beside it. And Nancy.
Waco, you hear it?
The storm is coming, all right.
You better stock up some firewood. I've waited a long time to see that northern gale come over the lake like this. The way it did when Nancy was here.
We've spent a long time here by the lake, Sabo.
Yes, we have, Waco.
Nearly 20 years. We had to drain off the swamps, cut down the trees.
Nearly 20 years.
Oh, you've done well for a businessman. You've got the largest house, the only flour mill for 300 miles, and time to waste petting a blind old parrot and painting pictures of the lake. Still, it's not enough. I've seen loneliness like this drive a man mad.
You don't think I'm mad, do you, Waco, huh?
I wouldn't say that. A man ought to have more people around, someone to talk to.
When I feel like talking, I've got old Polly here to talk to. And you, old friend.
A parrot's not people. Besides, that one can't say but one word. Just nasi.
Wacko, will you stop that? Stop it, both of you.
I didn't know it would bother you, Saba. I didn't mean...
You didn't mean what?
I didn't mean to upset you. Is something wrong, Saba?
No. There is nothing wrong. I'm sorry, Wacko. I felt queer all of a sudden. I guess it's this waiting for daybreak, waiting for a chance to paint another picture, and feeling it's to be my last chance.
It will be daybreak soon. Why don't you rest a while? Sleep.
I will try. I'll lie down. Watch out!
Let me help you. Walk right into it. I told you, Saba, you're not well.
I'll be all right. Just keep your eyes looking east, and when dawn breaks, call me.
We. Lie down. Lie down. Rest. I'll call you.
I lay down. The waves already sounded wild out on the lake. I wondered why my hands trembled and why I stumbled over a chair with my eyes open. I was not old. 50 was not old on the frontier. Even if you had lived as I had, crossed 3 oceans, studied painting in Paris, fought in 2 armies on the European continent, come to explore unknown territories of North America with the French, saw someone I liked when I pushed up near the lake regions with La Salle, come back alone the next year. Come into Kaskaskia on a morning like this, when the rain was heavy and the thunder was a drum. Came with my horse team loaded with everything I owned in the world. Came up to the wild Kaskaskia trading post and saw the faces of roustabouts and riverboatmen looking out at my back team. That time I did not know the post owner, Delaware Martin, was in the pay of the British and watched every step I took up to this store. I did not know there would come a time when I could hear Delaware tell his colonel exactly how I came to take my second trip to Chicago.
I saw this DeSable come to my post one morning. Hired out Chib and me as guides. Had 3 pack horses loaded. I could see if we wanted to examine his packs, we'd better be careful. Stood a good 6 feet and weighed at least 200. The tan he had didn't come entirely from the outdoor air. I questioned him and learned he was from Santo Domingo and wanted to get to a place called Chicago. Now, we had to be careful. He could be a slave traveling ahead for some company. Else he could be a freedman with spoils from some raid. Lie off. I can let someone else handle my post here if the trip is worth it to me.
400 francs?
I'll take it.
I'd like to start immediately.
In that storm? Why, we couldn't get 100 yards.
I would like a guide who could start immediately.
I'm still the guide. A man anxious to start a trip in a storm, Colonel, must be escaping from something and with something. Now, we figured offering 400 francs for a guide. He must have had more, lots more in his sacks. I took one of my men with me, and we got the pack horses on a river boat and pushed it up the Kaskaskia River until she ran into her bed. Then we struck out across the plains. We broke through woods and headed towards the lakes. All the time, he kept behind us, nursing his pack, never seeming asleep, never letting us get near it, keeping his rifle cocked. Now, one night we had to kill one of the horses for food. Chib and I waited to see what he would do with the pack the horses carried.
Chib, could you handle this pack? We haven't much further to go.
Sure. I'll take good care of it.
Fire!
It's many other horses, so the most valuable pack was not the one he allowed Chib to carry. When another horse died, this DuSable gave me its pack to carry. Now we knew where he kept his valuables, in the pack he carried. Soon we could smell the odor of wild onions, and we knew we were coming to this place called Chicago. Chib wanted to do something to get at his pack.
If we carry him to his destination, he might have friends waiting. We won't have a chance to take it then. Let's rush him now.
Now wait till he gets to this Chicago. Who knows, maybe there's more waiting for us there than what's in his pack. He can't be coming all this way for an empty land.
Yeah, you're right. He must have something hid at this Chicago point. All right, Del, you know best.
And one September evening, Colonel, we came into the Chicago marshland. We'd broken through hundreds of miles of forest, dodged Indian bands, and gone hungry to keep his precious packs intact. When we dropped down tired on a patch of sand near the lake, we slept through the night and looked around us when we awoke. We'd expected to see a settlement, an encampment at the least. There was nothing. Nothing but flat marshland and swamps and wild onions scattered around the lakefront. The Chib shook her employer.
Hey, wake up. Wake up! Is this the point you wanted us to bring you to?
Mon Dieu, oui, this is it.
Well, what's here? You look like a man who's been brought up in better places than swamps. What's here?
My life.
Well, what's in this for us?
Your 400 francs.
400 francs not enough for what we've done.
What else do you want?
We'll take that. No!
Chib reached for DuSable's pack, Colonel, and drew his pistol. He had it half-cocked, but the big man threw himself over the pack. We knew then it had everything in the world he considered valuable. Well, I had a driftwood club, and I swung it at his head, but he wouldn't go down. He spun me around and slapped me down on the sand. And somehow Chib got his pistol hand almost free and pulled the trigger. And DuSable knocked it aside, but the gun flash hit his eyes and went down on his knees, half blinded. I straightened up. I saw Chib was clawing at DuSable's back. Take anything out before I see it, and I'll knock your head off.
Oh, there's enough for both of us. It's heavy. Here, split the side. There. Hey, what's this?
Huh?
Del, what's this? Del, there's nothing else in here. Del, where'd he hide it? Where's the money?
Check his trousers.
I did. 400 francs, nothing else. Just what he said he'd pay us. Del, he was out of his mind, wasn't he, Del? Those paintings, those brushes. This is why he wanted to come to Chicago. You ought to finish
Leave him
him.
alone. There's something queer about a man who'll drive like a demon to get to a place like Chicago to bring paintbrushes and pictures. Well, that's my story, Colonel. All that happened 6 months ago. I brought you here to the spot. This is the same DuSable. I put the scar on his neck. This is the one.
No, I didn't know when I led my pack horses into Kaskaskia, up to the post, that there would come a time when I would see him standing over me, telling almost every step I took since I came to Chicago.
And now, if you will just fill in your actions since Delaware Mountain left you here on the beach, perhaps His Majesty's government will be satisfied that you shouldn't be shot as a spy.
Well, messieurs, where shall I start?
Start where you're standing.
Huh?
You didn't have this fine house when we left you on the beach.
Who built it for you?
I built it myself.
You had European help. This is no cabin you could have thrown together with your bare hands. The wood's pitted. It's been planed down. Now, who did it?
Before I came here, messieurs, I worked as a carpenter in San Domingo. Would you care to see some of my work?
Show it.
I showed the British colonel my plane, my carpenter's tools, and I demonstrated that I knew how to use them better than most frontiersmen. But he was not satisfied.
I see. You've done all right for someone living at this point all alone.
You have many visitors?
A good many.
Where do they come from?
From almost anywhere, Colonel. British, French, Spanish, Americans. A good many pass point Chicago on their way west or up to Canada. I started trading with them. First, I paint their pictures, and they give me muskets. Then I traded the muskets to the Indians for fur. For bear? Well, you see what I have built up, huh?
I see. You've built well. Orderly, check his stock.
They checked my stock. I had expanded my settlement to include a dairy, bakehouse, mill, smokehouse, barn, stable. The British taxed me until I'd grown strong enough to make an alliance with the Americans. My settlement grew to be one of the largest in the Northwest. I was granted citizenship by the Americans in 1783. All were surprised to see me, a man of culture, as they called me, living in the hinterland. They had long laughs at my paintings of Lake Michigan. I never laughed with them. There were only a few that knew about Nancy. Most of them knew Nancy only as the old parrot that fluttered at my shoulders and cried out at the lake. Most wanted to know how profitable I had made this Point Chicago, whether there was room for more traders, whether the Indians were friendly. A few learned about Nancy, learned how I had found the Indians friendly on my first trip into the Northwest with LaSalle. When I met an Indian maid, I called Nancy, and I took her for my wife. I had told LaSalle's men that I was quitting the expeditions, was going to settle down with Nancy and her tribe. I remember Waco, a young brave, who came with a cage full of wild birds and said,
It's for you and your squaw. To pick a bird on a day like this brings luck, keeps evil away.
Nancy, I remember, believed in the charm. I looked over the birds, picked out a large green parrot LaSalle had given the tribe the day before.
Oh, Jean. Good. Now we live to be 100 years old.
If we live as long as this old bird, I'll be satisfied. Come on. Let's run to the lake. Come on. I'll beat you down to the beach.
No, you won't.
I remember the run.
Down to a sandy point on the lake to go swimming. I remember looking up at the sky. Clouds were gathering. Nancy said,
I'm going to be first in the water.
Be careful, Nancy.
I know less better than you do.
Be careful anyway. And Nancy, don't swim out too far. Looks like a storm is coming up. Nancy!
She was gone, cutting the waves like a knife. I'd seen her swim far out into the lake before, but there was something about the clouds this time that bothered me. A storm could drop down quick over the lake and boil the waves and throw a swimmer around like a birch leaf. I called after her. I remembered the wind coming up and watching her knife out further and further. I called again and again. I called until the parrot had the words, until I saw her hands rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. And then she fell under the waves. She was out so far I could hardly see her. I remember the storm dropping almost as if it had been shot out of a cannon, and me running in after her and calling her name. I remember cutting through the water, slapping the waves until my arms wouldn't raise, until someone had come in after me and I was being taken off the beach when the storm blew over. I remember hearing men muttering over me and the voice of Waco.
She should have known better. She should have known the lake was evil.
I never saw Nancy again. When I was rested and well, I left the lake with LaSalle's men. I left, but I never forgot how the lake looked when the storm came up. I never forgot Nancy. And when I grew tired of wandering in the Caribbean, I packed my paintings and my belongings and went to Kaskaskia to begin the long trip back to Point Chicago. There was money to be made at the point. I made it. But there was the memory of Nancy by the lake. And I never gave up trying to capture the image of her on stormy days. Whenever a storm broke, I had Walker awaken me just before dawn, as he did this morning.
Father, it's coming.
What? Huh?
The wind is blowing harder than I've seen it blow since G left. It's what you want to paint.
Bring me the easel and open a window. Let some light come through.
Your easel is right here, Father.
They open one of the windows. It's dark in here.
The shutters are open?
Then why can't I see anything? I've got. Watch out! I can't see, Walker. Help me. Turn on the lamps.
The lamps are on.
Walker, I'm blind.
You're very tired.
I can't see. I missed the storm, the same kind that came up over the lake when Nancy went down. I missed it. I'm blind.
You'll be all right when you're rested, Father.
I'll never be able to paint anything in Chicago again. For months, for years, I've waited. I felt this dizziness coming over me. I've seen things turned into shadows. Now I'm a blind old man. I'll never be able to see Chicago again or paint the lake.
You've already painted it, Father. You've seen everything there is at the point. You've seen it before it was born. You've nursed it to where it stands now. You've seen the beginning of Chicago.
I had seen its beginning. And when LeMay came by in the morning, I signed his contract, giving him a temporary lease on my properties. I could not bear being in Point Chicago and not be able to see it go. But I kept the deed Colonel Clark gave me.
Here it is, monsieur. I'd like to come back to what is mine.
Well, now, this will have to be taken up with the mayor, of course. You understand, Mr. DeSable, I don't challenge your claims, but I've got to call the mayor.
I suppose I left him, this gentleman of the city records and city claims, while he pondered my problem. But a spirit is a restless thing and given to wandering the earth and not waiting for claims to be settled. So it has been with mine. So I content myself with my memorial plaque these city fathers placed on Michigan Bridge, near where my house stood, and with the high school in the city that bears my name, Jean-Baptiste du Sable.
You have just heard Destination Freedom's dramatization of The Man Who Owned Chicago, the story of the first permanent Chicago settler, Jean-Baptiste du Sable. Destination Freedom is written by Richard Durham and produced by Homer Heck. Today's program was directed by Dick Lochran. The role of Jean-Baptiste du Sable was played by Oscar Brown, Jr. Others in the cast were Fred Pinkard, Dean Almquist, Wesleyan Tilden, Russ Reed, and Tony Parrish. Special music was composed by Emil Soderstrom and played by Elwin Owen and Jose Bethencourt. Our technician was Gary DeVlieg. Sound effects by Cliff Mueller and Dave Squires. This is Hugh Downs inviting you to be with us again next week when Destination Freedom will tell the story of Dean Dixon, noted concert conductor. You're tuned for the stars on NBC.